The history of electricity, the discovery that changed human life, a production for English through great stories. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the world without electricity, not a power cut, but a world where it was never discovered at all. No lights, no refrigerator, no internet, no hospital machines keeping fragile lives alive. Just darkness when the sun goes down, and silence where there was once so much noise. For most of human history, that was reality. People lived by fire, wind, water, and muscle. They were not weak or unintelligent, but they were limited in ways we can barely imagine. The night was truly dark. Winter was truly dangerous, and illness could take a life before morning came. The story of electricity is the story of the human spirit, of curiosity, stubbornness, rivalry, and genius. Men and women who refused to accept that the world could not be understood. And in their refusal, they changed everything. This is that story. Welcome to English Through Great Stories. Chapter 1. The Ancient Mystery. The story begins on a quiet beach in ancient Greece, perhaps 2,600 years ago. A woman picks up a piece of amber, a golden-brown substance formed from ancient tree resin, and rubs it against her clothing. To her surprise, it begins to attract small pieces of dust and straw, as if by invisible magic. The ancient Greeks called amber electron. They had no word for the invisible force it produced, but they noticed it, and observation is where all knowledge begins. Some believed the amber was alive. Others thought it contained a hidden spirit. They could feel the force, but they could not explain it. People observed electricity in many forms. Sailors noticed strange glowing lights at ship masts during thunderstorms, St. Elmo's fire. Fishermen who caught electric rays discovered these creatures could deliver a powerful shock. Electricity was everywhere in nature, waiting to be understood. Ancient Egyptians wrote about the thunderer of the Nile, electric catfish that stunned prey in the river's dark waters and used them in a primitive form of pain relief. It was crude, but one of the earliest medical uses of electrical energy. Nature had written the lesson. Humanity had not yet learned to read it. And above all, there was lightning, blazing, terrifying, magnificent. The most powerful electrical event in the natural world. Every civilization saw it and trembled. None of them, for thousands of years, truly understood what it was. Chapter 2. Lightning and Fear. Imagine the terror of a storm before any science existed to explain it. The sky turns black, the wind rises to a scream. Then comes a blinding crack splitting the sky, followed by a sound so powerful it shakes the earth. People ran, people prayed, and for thousands of years, prayer was the only response. Every ancient culture gave lightning a name. The Greeks believed it was the weapon of Zeus. The Romans called him Jupiter. The Norse gave thunder to Thor. The Hindus spoke of Indra, god of storm. Different cultures, different names, but always the same idea. This power belongs to the gods. Lightning killed without warning. It destroyed buildings and set forests on fire. In medieval Europe, church bells were rung during thunderstorms to protect surrounding towns. Many bell ringers died. The iron bell rope conducted electricity perfectly. Faith was no protection against physics. Yet inside this fear there was fascination. A lightning storm at night is one of the most extraordinary spectacles in nature. Raw, incomprehensible power crashing across the sky. It is no surprise that humanity both feared and worshipped it. The two feelings were perhaps inseparable. For millennia, the question hung in the air. What is this thing? Where does it come from? Can it be controlled? They were not just scientific questions, but questions about the relationship between humanity and the forces of the natural world. Answering them would take centuries of curiosity and courage. Chapter 3. The Curious Mind. By the 16th century, something was changing in European intellectual life. The Renaissance had opened minds. People were questioning old explanations. The idea that knowledge could come from careful observation and experiment was gaining power. A new generation was about to investigate the mysterious force the Greeks had noticed in amber. The first significant figure is William Gilbert, personal physician to Queen Elizabeth I. In 1600, he published De Magnete, or On the Magnet. He was the first to use the Latin word electricus, derived from the Greek electron, to describe the force of rubbed amber. From his work, our word electricity was born. Gilbert showed that electricity was real and physical, not supernatural, and that many materials produced it when rubbed. He distinguished electrical attraction from magnetic attraction. A rigorous thinker, his work lit the way for those who came after. Yet he was only opening a door. The rooms beyond were still entirely dark. A few decades later, German inventor Otto von Guericke built the first machine ever designed to generate static electricity. A sulfur sphere turned by a hand crank that produced sparks when touched. People gathered to watch it in astonishment, a machine that made small, controlled lightning. Stephen Gray, an English scientist of the early 1700s, discovered that electrical force could travel, transmitted along certain materials. He called this communication of electricity. We call it conductivity. Gray had discovered that electricity could move. It could flow. Gray's experiments were theatrical. In one demonstration, he suspended a young boy from silk ropes, electrified him, and showed that objects were attracted to the boy's hands. The audience was stunned. Science in the 18th century had a certain dramatic flair. In 1745 came the Leyden jar, created at the University of Leiden by Peter van Mussenbroek. A glass jar lined with metal foil, it was the first device that could store electrical charge and release it all at once in a powerful shock. Electricity now had a vessel. Van Mussenbroek received a shock so terrible he wrote that he would not repeat the experiment for the entire kingdom of France. And yet he did, because in a true scientist, curiosity is stronger than fear. The Leyden jar spread across Europe. Electricity had become both a spectacle and a tool. Chapter 4. Benjamin Franklin and the Storm. No figure in early electrical history is more famous or more daring than Benjamin Franklin. A printer, writer, and man of unlimited curiosity, born in Boston in 1706, largely self-educated. In the 1740s and 1750s, he turned his brilliant mind toward the greatest electrical mystery of the age, lightning. Franklin's great insight was simple. What if lightning was not supernatural, but merely electricity on an enormous natural scale? In the mid-18th century, this was a radical idea. To suggest that the lightning of the gods was merely physics was to challenge centuries of belief. To test his idea, Franklin designed one of the most iconic experiments in the history of science. He took a silk kite with a sharp metal wire at the top, attached a metal key to the end of the string, and a silk ribbon to protect his hand. Then, during a thunderstorm in 1752, he flew the kite. And he waited. As the storm intensified, the kite string's fibers stood on end, a sign of electrical charge. Franklin brought his knuckle to the metal key. A spark jumped to his hand, the familiar shock of static electricity. Lightning was electricity. Nature and the laboratory were finally speaking the same language. Franklin was lucky to survive. The experiment was genuinely dangerous. 2 European scientists who attempted to replicate it were killed. His survival allowed him to take the next logical step, and that step was arguably more important than the experiment itself. If lightning was electricity, it could be redirected. Franklin's lightning rod, a metal spike at the top of a building connected to Earth by wire, was one of the most practical inventions in history. Within years, it was installed across America and Europe. Fires, once seen as divine wrath, were prevented by a piece of metal. The gods had been answered. Chapter 5: Volta and the First Battery. The next great chapter begins not with a storm, but with a dead frog. In the 1780s, Luigi Galvani was experimenting in Bologna when an assistant touched a dissected frog's leg with a scalpel while a static machine was running. The leg twitched. A dead muscle had moved. Galvani concluded the movement was caused by animal electricity, a vital force within living tissue. He was not entirely wrong. Electricity does play a crucial role in every muscle and nerve in every living body, including yours, right now as you listen to these words. But Alessandro Volta believed the electricity had not come from the frog at all. It had come from the contact between 2 different metals. The frog was simply a sensitive detector. The source was the metals and the chemical reaction between them. The debate between Galvani and Volta was passionate and personal. Both were brilliant, but it was Volta's thinking that led to a world-changing invention. In 1800, he stacked alternating zinc and silver discs separated by saltwater-soaked cardboard and connected a wire to each end. Electricity flowed, steadily, continuously. Not a spark, but a sustained, controllable current. The world's first battery, the voltaic pile. For the first time, you could make electricity, store it, and use it at will. Electricity had been given its first leash. Volta sent his discovery to the Royal Society and to Napoleon, who made him a count. Within weeks, scientists used the voltaic pile to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, electrolysis. The battery had barely been invented, and it was already rewriting chemistry. Chapter 6: Faraday's Dream. Some scientists are born into advantage. Michael Faraday was not. Born in 1791 in South London, the son of a blacksmith, he left school early and went to work at 13 as an errand boy for a bookbinder. But in that shop, Faraday found books. He taught himself science from encyclopedias and performed simple experiments with cheap materials. At 20, he attended lectures by the chemist Humphrey Davy, took meticulous notes, bound them himself, and sent them to Davy as a job application. Davy hired him, one of the most consequential decisions in scientific history. Faraday began as a laboratory assistant, but soon conducted his own investigations. Over the decades, he produced work of profound and lasting importance. His greatest achievement came in 1831. That year, Faraday discovered electromagnetic induction. He wrapped 2 coils of wire around an iron ring and found that switching current in one coil produced a current in the other, even without contact. He then showed that moving a magnet through a coil of wire produced a continuous electrical current. This was the principle of the electric generator. Motion converted directly into electrical current. The energy of falling water, wind, and steam could all become electricity. Faraday had found the key to the electrical age. When asked what use his discovery might have, he reportedly said, "One day, sir, you may tax it." What makes Faraday so remarkable is not just his intelligence, but his character. He never patented a discovery. Science, he believed, belonged to everyone. He gave public lectures on electricity to packed halls of curious Londoners. A blacksmith's son with no degree, guided only by curiosity and discipline. He was right. Chapter 7. Edison and the Grid. By the 1870s and 1880s, electricity had moved from the laboratory into the wider world. It had become a business opportunity, and no one understood that opportunity better than a practical, tireless, and commercially brilliant inventor from Ohio named Thomas Alva Edison. Thomas Edison was born in Ohio in 1847. Practical, tireless, commercially brilliant. A former telegraph operator with a deep understanding of electrical systems, he believed genius was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. His Menlo Park laboratory was perhaps the world's first organized research facility. Edison's ambition was a complete electrical system, generation, distribution, and delivery to homes and businesses. He chose direct current, or DC, electricity flowing in one direction, steady and simple. In his view, the only safe and practical option for urban supply. In 1882, Edison opened the world's first commercial power station on Pearl Street in Manhattan. For the first time, electricity was generated centrally and distributed to paying customers. The age of electrical infrastructure had begun. Chapter 8. The War of Currents. Then, in 1884, a young man arrived carrying a letter describing him as a first-rate man. Nikola Tesla, Serbian by birth, extraordinary by nature, had crossed the Atlantic with 4 cents in his pocket and an idea he believed would change everything. Tesla was visionary and intuitive, the opposite of Edison's methodical approach. He claimed to visualize complete machines before assembling them. His great belief that alternating current, or AC, was vastly superior to direct current for distributing electrical power. In alternating current, electricity reverses direction many times per second. The key advantage, AC voltage could be raised or lowered by a transformer, allowing electricity to travel vast distances with minimal loss. Edison's DC system required thick, expensive cables and power stations every mile or two. Tesla worked briefly for Edison but found no interest in AC. Edison had invested everything in DC. Their relationship broke down. Tesla found a new ally in George Westinghouse, who saw immediately that AC was the future. The war of currents had begun. Edison thought ruthlessly, organizing demonstrations where animals were electrocuted using AC and arranging for the first electric chair to use AC, hoping to associate Tesla's system with death. But physics could not be denied. In 1893, Westinghouse and Tesla lit the world's Columbian Exposition in Chicago with AC electricity. In 1896, Tesla's system powered the first long-distance transmission from Niagara Falls to Buffalo, New York. The battle was over. AC had won. The human story behind the war of currents is a tragedy. Tesla died in 1943, alone and forgotten in a New York hotel room, having sold most of his patents for very little. Edison spent years defending a position history proved wrong. Both were extraordinary. Together, despite their enmity, they built the foundation of the modern world. Chapter 9. The Light That Changed Everything. We take artificial light so for granted that it requires effort to understand what its invention meant. Before the light bulb, darkness shaped every aspect of life. When it fell, activity stopped or continued dangerously by candles and oil lamps that flickered, smelled, and regularly set buildings on fire. Edison's practical light bulb in 1879 is one of the most celebrated moments in invention history. The challenge was making lights last. Many earlier designs burned out within minutes or hours. The solution was a filament that could glow without burning up too quickly. Edison's team tested more than 3,000 materials as potential filaments. In October 1879, a carbonized bamboo filament lasted 1,200 hours. On New Year's Eve, Edison lit Menlo Park with dozens of glowing bulbs. Hundreds came by train to see it. Many wept. Why did they weep? Because they understood what it meant. Safe, steady, affordable light. Light that didn't flicker. Light that couldn't catch curtains on fire. Light for factories, hospital wards, school classrooms. Light that extended the day so work could continue and books could be read. Darkness had been a tyrant since the beginning of human life. Now it had been dethroned. The social effects were profound. Streets became safer. Hospitals could perform procedures too dangerous in poor light. Libraries stayed open into the evening. The concept of daytime activity and nighttime rest began slowly to blur. In a deeper sense, the electric light was a declaration. For all of history, human life was dictated by the sun. When it rose, you woke. When it set, you slept. The light bulb said, "No, we decide." It was one of the boldest acts of human independence ever made. Chapter 10. Electricity Transforms the World. Once electrical distribution was established, the transformation was extraordinary. The first power grids appeared in the 1880s and 1890s. By the early 20th century, electricity flowed through homes and businesses across Europe and America. Electric trams replaced horse-drawn vehicles. Electric railways opened new connections. Electric motors transformed factories. The Industrial Revolution, powered by steam, was becoming something new, an electrical civilization whose energy could reach anywhere a wire could go. The electric refrigerator, widely available in the 1920s, was a revolution in food safety. For the first time, families could keep food cold without ice deliveries. Spoiled food, responsible for untold suffering throughout history, became a far smaller threat. This single invention saved millions of lives. Then came radio. Marconi harnessed electromagnetic waves to transmit information wirelessly. By the 1920s, broadcasts reached millions of homes. A family could hear music performed live hundreds of miles away. The world had become, suddenly, smaller. Television followed in the 1930s, transforming politics, culture, and entertainment. The washing machine liberated millions from hours of labor. The electric pump brought clean running water indoors. Each new device was a gift of time, and time is ultimately what electricity gave humanity more of. And then came computers, from room-filling machines of the 1940s to transistors and integrated circuits that made them ever smaller. By the 2000s, more computing power than existed in the entire world in 1960 could fit in your pocket. All of it running on electricity. Today, electricity is so embedded in life it has become invisible. We reach for a switch in the dark, communicate across continents, heal the sick. All of this made possible by a force that a woman noticed in a piece of amber more than 2,000 years ago. Chapter 11. The Hidden Cost. Every great gift carries the seed of a problem. For most of the 20th century, electricity was generated by burning coal, oil, and natural gas. Fossil fuels formed over hundreds of millions of years, burned away in a single human lifetime. In London, in 1952, coal smoke combined with cold, stagnant air to produce the Great Smog, a toxic fog that killed up to 12,000 people in days. One of the worst environmental disasters in British history, caused not by war, but by the ordinary daily burning of coal. But the most profound problem was invisible. Burning fossil fuels releases carbon dioxide, which traps heat and warms the planet. Scientists understood this from the 19th century. Svante Arrhenius calculated its effects accurately as early as 1896. But the benefits of cheap energy were immediate. The costs were slow, gradual, and easy to ignore. They can no longer be ignored. The evidence is overwhelming. The Earth's climate is changing, and burning fossil fuels is the principal cause. Glaciers retreat, sea levels rise, extreme weather intensifies. The hunger for electricity that built the modern world is threatening the natural systems on which all life depends. Consider the story of a farming community in the Sahel, the long, dry belt of land that stretches across Africa, just south of the Sahara Desert. For generations, families there grew sorghum and millet, and the rains came faithfully each season, as they always had. But in recent decades, the rains have become unreliable, arriving late or not at all, or falling so fiercely in a single afternoon that they wash the topsoil clean away. A grandmother in Mali described it simply: "Before we could read the sky. Now the sky tells us nothing." Her family's crops failed 3 years out of 5. Her grandchildren left for the city. The village, which had existed for centuries, began quietly to empty. Behind this slow disappearance runs the same invisible thread: carbon dioxide, rising temperatures, and the accumulated weight of fossil fuels burned largely elsewhere in the world. Yet the story is not one of simple despair. The same curiosity that unlocked electricity is now directed at solving the problem its use created. Wind turbines use Faraday's electromagnetic induction to generate electricity from air. Solar panels convert sunlight into current. Hydroelectric dams channel falling water through generators. The transition to clean energy is not simple and not fast enough, but the direction is clear. The share of electricity from renewables grows every year. The human species, having created a problem, is now applying its most powerful tool, creative intelligence, to solving it. There is a beautiful irony in this. The force that once seemed divine, the lightning of Zeus, the hammer of Thor, was tamed by human curiosity and turned into the engine of civilization. Now that civilization learns to generate it from the turning of a wind turbine, from sunlight on silicon, from the flow of a mountain river. Chapter 12. Closing Reflection. We have traveled a long way together, from a woman on a beach in ancient Greece rubbing amber to the vast electrical network carrying power to billions on every continent. It is one of the longest journeys in human thought, and it is still continuing. What does this story tell us? First, that curiosity is our most powerful characteristic. The deep, restless curiosity of people who cannot stop asking why, how, what if. It drove William Gilbert. It drove Michael Faraday. It kept Benjamin Franklin standing in a storm with a kite and a key. It tells us, second, that great discoveries rarely happen in isolation. Each figure, Gilbert, Volta, Faraday, Edison, Tesla, stood on those who came before. Science is a conversation across centuries. Each answer becomes the foundation for 10 more questions. Each discovery opens a door onto a larger room of mystery. Third, the path of knowledge is rarely smooth. Edison and Tesla fought bitterly. Galvani died believing Volta had proved him wrong. Faraday, despite his brilliance, was never fully accepted by the establishment he had entered without a degree. The road to understanding is not a highway. It is full of wrong turns and painful detours. But what a road it has been! Think of a child born in a hospital tonight, monitored by electrical instruments. Think of a surgeon guided by electrical imaging removing a tumor. Think of a grandmother video calling her grandchildren across the world in real time. None of this was possible 200 years ago. All of it is ordinary today. And think of the billion people still without reliable electricity. For them, this is not history. It is present tense aspiration. A child who could study after dark, a farmer with clean water, a hospital that could keep medicines cold. For these people, electricity is not a convenience. It is a future. Electricity is not just a technology. It is a symbol of what happens when people refuse to accept ignorance. When they pick up amber and ask why. When they fly a kite into a storm, when they test 3,000 materials in search of one that works. It is the symbol of our determination to understand the world and use that understanding to make life better. There is electricity in your home right now, running quietly through the walls. There is electricity in your body, in every heartbeat, every thought, every sensation. The force that the ancient Greeks found in amber, that frightened our ancestors, that drove brilliant people to dedicate their lives, that force is in you. It connects you to every living thing on this remarkable planet. Next time you walk into a dark room and reach for a switch, pause for a moment. Remember the woman with the amber. Remember Franklin in the storm. Remember Faraday, the blacksmith's son, with a magnet and a coil of wire. The light that comes on is the accumulated curiosity of 2,500 years of human wondering. Thank you for listening to English Through Great Stories. This has been the history of electricity, the discovery that changed human life. Keep learning, keep wondering, and keep the light on.